This is Christopher Moore, Product Trainer with Alert Solutions, and this is an on-demand training session on how to fill out your initial settings for SwiftK12. In order to access your settings for the district level, which is what I will use in this on-demand training session, you'll start over in the alerting section and click on SwiftK12. You will also want to do this at the building levels. Again, we'll be using the district office level only, but as you switch buildings, you'll be able to do the same type of settings. In this particular situation, if I were to switch over to do the settings for Apple Grove High School, I would switch buildings, click on SwiftK12, and then click on the settings menu in order to do the same settings that we'll do today during this on-demand training session, specifically on the messaging settings and system settings. If you are interested in the automated alerting settings at each building, please refer to the on-demand training session for automated attendance, low lunch, and low grade alerts. Let's get started with the district settings. I'm going to switch buildings to district office and click on SwiftK12. From here in the main menu, right above the What Would You Like to Do menu, I'm going to click on the settings. From settings, I'll start off with the messaging settings, and first with the messaging defaults. This is how you're going to determine the email, SMS, and phone call sends, and the associated settings for all of them, including basic information and call options. For your basic information, you want to include your from email address of a valid email address that sits on your domain. This is especially important for those clients who are considering a no reply or do not reply address, as any valid email address will need to be placed within this section. For your from email name, you want to consider this similar to your district or your building's name that would be displayed for any emails that are being sent. So this would normally be the name of the district. At the district level, it would be the listing for the actual building for the from email name at the building levels. Your from SMS name will help with your actual text message deliverability. This is up to 20 characters that you have in order to place the name of the actual building or district. In this case, if I were to update this as stated here from Apple Grove High into the Apple Grove district, that still falls within the parameters of my up to 20 characters, and that will help to differentiate any sends that I have in the from SMS name of any text messages being sent from the Apple Grove district versus those at the high school, middle school, or elementary school. For the from caller ID, you want to make sure that this is filled out exactly the way that it's shown, but just as a best practice, make sure that that is a setting for the from caller ID of a number that routes to maybe a switchboard or general phone line, not just to one single individual within the district or the school. You'll want to ensure that this is set up appropriately in that manner, as you want to avoid any of those unnecessarily burdensome phone calls that come in from parents, guardians, or staff, just calling the number back that they see in the caller ID, specifically stating to you, I saw that you called, what was it about? In order to have that taken away, you probably want to have this set up to go to at least a switchboard number, if not to a phone tree. For default language, many clients are already set up for English as their default language. This is separate from your automated translation. Your automated translation will review in your system settings. Your default language can be updated from the drop-down over here. Again, this would be separate from your automated translation. SwiftK12 allows for 24 languages automatically translated, for text-to-text, 20 for text-to-speech. So let's look at the call options. Your call retries and your call retry interval in minutes are directly tied into how many times you'd like to retry a phone number before it comes back to in your reports as busy. Specifically for those areas where you may have had any difficulties with the former SIS system, or you've had to work with us if you're an existing client to set up call throttling to allow for different switches of, and specifically some rural areas, to have those retries increase before those lines truly come back to say that they were busy. Maybe if you've had further operator intercepts, sometimes you'll want to look at increasing this call retry. You can increase your call retries up to 5. Your call retry interval would be every 3 minutes. You can adjust both of these based on how you would like to actually throttle those particular call retries and intervals on here. By default, it will probably be set for you at 2 and 3, respectively, to call retries at 3 minutes each time. Just keep in mind some tips that are tied into call retries and retry intervals. For the amount of call retries that you have, it will dial that number. If the line is busy, it's going to drop that number to the bottom of the actual specified list for your phone call. retry that 3 minutes later. If it's still busy, drop it to the bottom of the list, call retry again 3 minutes later. This will actually impact the amount of time that it will take for your message to be completed, because you need to keep in mind that it's actually taking that retry interval of every 3 minutes. So you may see the status at 98, 99% and wonder why it's not up to 100% for your phone calls, and you'll be able to see that it's probably or most likely tied in with the retry intervals. Next, let's look at the max ring seconds. The max ring seconds of 60 seconds is how long the system will call a designated number before it reports back to no answer. You can always increase, decrease this, etc. As shown over here, you can increase, decrease with those pads, or simply type in the information. For those of you who are using best practice for your voice message calls, that would include content of 35 to 60 seconds, if not more, in content. That's a good best practice as far as the amount of time that you're spending on the actual phone call content that's developed. But you may have some individuals within the district or the school who still have abbreviated messages, are not falling within that best practice, and they may have messages that are abbreviated to the point of "schools closed today, be safe and warm." You can use voice message replays to assist in that, so that the voice message replay that you see here of 3 times, the message will play that initial time, it will automatically replay 3 times. Just to ensure that you don't receive those unnecessary calls of "the call was cut off, I didn't understand what it was," etc. You can always adjust those replays if you tend to have those individuals that don't leave those longer messages that actually fall within best practice. Again, you can adjust any of these sections that we review today, including the basic information and call options, directly from that settings section. I'm going to click Save and Exit. If you have an integration with Facebook and Twitter, you can do that from here as well. In order to have that loaded and associated, you can go onto the accounts that are linked to Facebook and follow the instructions found here. A best practice tied to social media, not only for your Facebook and for your Twitter integrations, is to ensure that you don't have a separate tab open with a personal Facebook or Twitter page open at the same time. You want to allow for that authorization specifically to the district or the building itself, instead of going into your particular personal page that's tied into the social media. On the home screen, as tied to social media, you can easily copy the URL for your RSS simply by clicking to the right of this RSS feed section and copying the URL that's associated there. Going back into the settings section, if you have users who would like to use email stationery, potential use case would be for a district stationery that includes the logo for the actual district or for the building, leave space for content, and then a boilerplate type statement that includes contact information from within. You can do so by clicking on that email stationery section. In order to add new email stationery, click Add Stationery Template. Give a name and a description to that template. Within these templates, you can use and upload different images by clicking that image section and uploading by choosing the file and sending it to server. And then you would have those images available to be placed within. And then you would place not only that logo there, but you can advise anyone using that template, place your content here. And at the bottom would be that boilerplate type statement. Boilerplate statements could be any type of statement about the community that is tied in with that district, could be the district address information, etc. You can use merge fields within using first name, last name, middle name, as well as school name, today, and tomorrow within these stationery templates. If you deem to do so, you can include that information as well. You'll notice that the items found here are similar to what you're doing when you're developing new emails as well within SwiftK12. Once you're satisfied with the email stationery that you've developed, click on Save. What you'll notice is that you can set one as a default stationery to be used. Simply by turning that on by default, you can edit your stationery templates. You can delete stationery templates as well. These particular stationery templates will be available if you use the advanced editing option when you're using all 3 channels, and you would want to do the same when you're selecting just email for your sends. You'll be able to see within the basic training, as well as in your development of your basic messages, the option to choose those different templates from the icon within the email template section of the email editor. Completing the messaging settings section, we've reviewed the messaging defaults, as well as your social media integrations and your email stationery. Next, let's look at your system settings. In order to allow access using your PowerSchool integrated data for your users, click on Users. You'll notice the actual page that's shown here allows you to see all of the potential users, as well as your active users and inactive users as the filters. In order to activate a user, click on Activate. In order to deactivate a user, click Deactivate. If someone is an administrative level, you can change them from a super user to a normal administrative user. If you needed to add access to the mobile app as well as standalone site, click on this green plus sign. Make note of the customer code that you have here and enter in the 10-digit mobile phone number of the individual who should receive a temporary mobile password. This can be used for both the standalone site that can be accessed preferably through Google Chrome or Mozilla Firefox as the preferred browser types. Can be accessed on any web-enabled device at k12.swiftreach.com or to the mobile app that's accessible for both iOS as well as for Android. Once you enter in that mobile phone number, click Enable, and they would be able to have that temporary password sent. If you need to revoke that access as well as reset, you can use the buttons that are shown over here to reset the mobile password as well as to revoke access. In order to review your active users, click on Active Users. Please note that at this time, the teacher levels do not have access to the mobile app and standalone site, only to the access to which you activate for PowerSchool entry point. Next, let's take a look at the development of your Do Not Contact list. The Do Not Contact list can be a great way to also discuss preferences on the parent portal because they're tied in together. The Do Not Contact list can be tied specifically to those individuals that advise you that they would like to be placed on the Do Not Contact list for a specific phone number or email address. Simply by clicking on that Do Not Contact list, place the name and the phone number or the name and the email address from within those sections. Please keep in mind, though, that once someone's placed on a Do Not Contact list, it applies to all categories, including the emergency category. That is why I mentioned that it's especially helpful to also point towards the parent portal to update preferences, as well as for staff preferences from within. You can view the student search section in order to look at an administrative view of the parent portal preferences, simply by selecting on a student. You'll be able to see the student preferences section, any contact information, as well as their overview in the SwiftK12 alerting section. Therefore, you can direct anyone to update their preferences for their student from within the parent portal for specific categories that are aligned. You can also do the same for staff, simply selecting that staff search and choosing a staff member from here. And you'll be able to do the same under SwiftK12 alerting. Please note that at this time, there's no staff portal that's associated, so many clients are setting up specific workbooks or worksheets, Google Sheets, in order to showcase to their specific staff members, here are the categories for my messages, and here are the actual mapped fields that I have, so that the staff can advise the office which preferences they would like for all of those categories, so then someone who can go in and update those staff preferences can do so from this particular tab. Let's go back over to SwiftK12 to take a look at the section for Do Not Contact, and then we'll move into your contact field mapping as well as your alert categories. In order to do so, let's go over to the settings section. We're first going to go over to alert categories as they are associated to your contact field mappings. I'm going to look at alert categories because they're specifically tied in for not only those categories that have been developed, but also associated to the fields that you have mapped between SwiftK12 as well as your PowerSchool data. In order to view those particular fields to which they're associated, just click on the Fields button that's here. It will show you the assigned fields for those categories. If you needed to update for the specific category, you can do so from here. Let's say that you wanted to include Emergency 1 for attendance. You would just click on there and click Save. This can also be done when we look at your contact field mapping, but many clients are finding it most helpful in order to do so from the alert category section. If you needed to add a new alert category, simply click on Add Alert Category. Provide a name for that category as well as a description. If you'd like to allow for that category to have preference override permissions, so if a parent or guardian wants to override their preferences within the parent portal, go ahead and click on that button here. If you want it visible in the category selectors as you develop your new messages, click on the checkbox that's shown here. If you want it shown on the parent portal, go ahead and click on that section. You have the control to do so for each of your categories. Finally, click Save. If you need to edit a category, you can use the actual edit buttons using this particular pencil icon to change the preference, set it as a default category, etc. If you need to delete a category, you can do so from under the Action section. If you need to lock a category down for editing, you can do so from this section as well. Next, let's take a look at your contact field mappings to make the connection between contact field mappings and your alert categories. Note that as you pull in the contact field mappings, it is common, as it's pulling data in from your PowerSchool and SwiftK12, that it should take a little bit of time. That particular lag time is normal. From this particular screen, you'll be able to see the different fields to which you're mapped between SwiftK12 and PowerSchool. This is also where you can see those categories once more, to which those particular fields are mapped and associated with these categories. You can also make those similar adjustments that we looked at in assign categories from this section here. If you need to edit a category, simply click Edit, and you can adjust based on the title, the edit access, and the category access from here as well. Keep in mind that if you need to adjust the access, you can make it read-only or hidden, and you can make the category access full access, read-only as well as hidden, and then save. If you need to add a new contact field, click Add Contact Field. The guesswork is gone. All you need to do is click on the entity type, whether it's student or staff, which will then identify the available source tables, the available source fields, and then you would just need to determine a contact method as well as a label name similar to a friendly field name. So in this case, if this was Dad's work phone number, emergency only, I would give that as the label name. I would then click Save. As shown in this informational screen, when you make any changes to these field mappings, you must rebuild the plugin and replace it within PowerSchool. So if I've made that adjustment, I'm going to click on Rebuild Plugin. It will drop a new zip file. Do not unzip that particular file to save it where you can easily access it. You would then go over into your Setup section under System. Under that subcategory, go into your Server section and click on System Settings. What you're looking for here is Plugin Management Configuration. You'll want to delete the old plugin and then install the new one. Once you've installed that particular plugin, go back over here to that Start page and click on SwiftK12, as you will have the ability within the next 60 minutes after doing that to go into contact field mappings once more. And what you will see from this particular screen is the ability within that 60-minute time frame to force a sync if the last synchronization completed is not within the exact time frame that you need, and especially if you need to do a forced sync on here. You will find a button in order to do so from here. Keep in mind, since I'm in a demonstration environment and we did not add any new contact fields, I do not have that specific button. As a point of reference, the last synchronization is very helpful to you, as the systems do an automatic synchronization every 6 hours. So in this particular case, if I did a new add contact field and I noticed that the last synchronization is a bit of time away from the next 6 hour sync time, I'd want to do a forced sync, which I would have the control to do. Let's go over to that settings section in order to complete the system settings and look at language mappings. You'll want to identify and advise your account manager of the exact field that you have within your PowerSchool for that automated translation. For some schools and districts, you have that set up as a preferred language, a primary language, secondary language spoken at home, but this will differ based on the way that you have it set up with your PowerSchool. As a point of reference, SMS, text messages will not be translated as automated. It will specifically be for your phone calls as well as your emails that automated translation can be completed. Once you've advised your account manager of that, all you need to do is go into that language mapping section, click Add Language Mapping. That particular PS language code will either be alpha or numeric. You would enter in that language code in here. So as an example, if I had an alpha code of SPA for Spanish, I would type that into the PS language code, and then from the dropdown, I would choose Spanish. And then I would click Save. This would associate for me any of the automated translation. I'll go to the home screen. We've reviewed at the district level your system settings as well as your messaging settings. You can always go back to these settings at the building as well as the district levels in order to update at any point. If you have any additional questions or need additional assistance in your setup and implementation, please feel free to click on Live Help. Live Help is available 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. In addition, your support phone number shown here, as well as email, is associated for 24/7 reference. This has been Setup and Implementation of how to set up your initial settings for SwiftK12.